The Grand Hall of the Galactic Empire's High Council buzzed with excitement. Tall, slender aliens with shimmering skin moved about, their long robes swishing as they walked. At the center of the room, a holographic display showed a small blue planet. Emperor Zixnax, leader of the Empire for over 500 years, raised his three-fingered hand. The room fell silent. "My fellow Galactics," he began, his voice deep and confident. "Today, we discuss the primitive species known as humans. Our scouts have found their homeworld, Earth." The Emperor's chief scientist, Dr. Kulan, stepped forward. His large eyes blinked rapidly as he spoke. "Your Majesty, these humans are nothing to worry about. They have only just reached their moon. Their technology is primitive, and their bodies are weak." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. Surely, these humans would be no different. General Vrak, the Empire's top military leader, puffed out his chest. "We could crush them with a single battleship. Why waste time talking? Let's add Earth to our empire now." The Emperor nodded, a smile on his face. "Indeed, General. But let's give them a chance to surrender first. It's more fun that way." Laughter echoed through the hall. The Galactics were sure of their power. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia. What could one small planet do against them? Meanwhile, on Earth, things were different. In a secret underground base, world leaders gathered around a large table. The room was tense, filled with the smell of coffee and sweat. A woman in a crisp military uniform stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation. Our deep space probes have detected a massive alien fleet heading our way." Gasps filled the room. A man with a thick accent spoke up. "Aliens? Are you sure?" The woman nodded. "Yes, Mr. President. And there's more. We've received a message from another alien race. They call themselves the Zordlaxians." She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared. A tall blue alien with 4 arms looked at them with sad eyes. "People of Earth," the alien said, "we are the Zordlaxians. We come to warn you. The Galactic Empire has set its eyes on your world. They are powerful and cruel. We advise you to flee. Find a new home among the stars before it's too late." The room erupted in chaos. Flee. Abandon Earth. It seemed impossible. The President of the United States stood up, his face stern. "We will not run," he declared. "Humanity has faced challenges before. We will face this one too." Around the table, other leaders nodded. They knew the fight ahead would be hard, but they were ready. In the following weeks, Earth changed. Governments revealed the truth about aliens. People panicked at first, but soon, a new spirit took over. Humanity united like never before. Factories worked day and night, building new weapons and spaceships. Scientists shared their secrets, working together to advance technology at an incredible pace. In orbit, the first human battle station took shape. It was a marvel of engineering, built in secret over the past decade. Now, it would be Earth's first line of defense. As the Galactic Empire's fleet approached, Emperor Zixnax felt confident. He stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, looking at the blue planet on the screen. "Send the message," he ordered. "Tell these humans to surrender or face destruction." The message was sent, and the Emperor waited, sure that the humans would beg for mercy. But the response that came shocked him. On the screen, a human appeared. He wore a simple uniform and had a determined look in his eyes. "Galactic Empire," the human said, his voice steady. "We have received your threat. Here is our answer. Come and get us, if you dare." The Emperor's jaw dropped. This was not the response he expected. For the first time in centuries, a small seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. Little did he know, this was just the beginning. The war that was about to start would change the galaxy forever. And at its center were the humans, a species that refused to flee, choosing instead to stand and fight against all odds. As Earth's defenses powered up and its newly built fleet took position, One thing became clear. The Galactic Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Zorblaxian ship glided through space, its sleek blue hull reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside, Captain Zorblix paced nervously. His forearms were clasped behind his back, his large eyes blinking rapidly. "Are you sure about this?" asked his second-in-command, Vixlar. "The Empire will not be happy if they find out." Zorblix nodded, his antennae twitching. "We must warn the humans. It's the right thing to do." Their ship approached Earth's orbit carefully. They had heard stories about human defenses, and they didn't want to be mistaken for enemies. On Earth, alarms blared in the newly established Space Defense Command. General Sarah Chen rushed to the control room, her heart racing. "Report," she barked. A young lieutenant looked up from his screen. "Ma'am, we've detected an alien ship, but it's different from the Empire's ships." Chen frowned. "Open a channel." The face of Zorblix appeared on the main screen. The humans in the room gasped. They had seen images of the Galactic Empire aliens, but this was different. "People of Earth," Zorblix said, his voice soft and melodious. "We come in peace. We are the Zorblaxians, and we bring an urgent warning." Over the next hour, Zorblix explained everything. The true extent of the Empire's power, their cruel methods, and the fate that awaited Earth if they didn't surrender. "Many worlds have fallen to the Empire," Zorblix said sadly. "We advise you to flee. Find a new home among the stars. It may be your only chance for survival." The room fell silent. General Chen looked at the alien with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Thank you for your warning," she said. "But Earth is our home. We will not abandon it." Zorblix's antennae drooped. "I understand. Then let us help you prepare." In the days that followed, the Zorblaxians shared what they knew about the Empire's technology and tactics. Earth's scientists worked tirelessly, incorporating this new knowledge into their defenses. Meanwhile, in a secret facility deep underground, a team of the world's best hackers gathered. Their mission: to create a virus that could infiltrate the Empire's systems. Dr. Aisha Patel, the lead scientist, looked at her team. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every world the Empire has conquered or threatened." Across the globe, people prepared for war. Shelters were built, weapons were distributed, and evacuation plans were made. But there was also hope. The Zorblaxians' warning had given them time to prepare. In orbit, Earth's first interstellar warship, the ESS Defiant, was almost complete. Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge, looking at his crew with pride. "We may be new to space warfare," he said, "but we have something the Empire doesn't: the spirit of humanity. We've faced extinction before, and we've always found a way to survive." As the days passed, tension grew. The Empire's fleet was getting closer. Earth's long-range sensors could now detect them. In the White House, the President of the United States addressed the world. His face was grim but determined. "My fellow humans," he began, "the hour of our greatest challenge approaches. The Galactic Empire thinks we are weak, that we will surrender or flee. They are wrong." He paused, his eyes flashing with determination. "Throughout our history, humanity has faced seemingly insurmountable odds. We've weathered ice ages, survived plagues, and overcome our own destructive nature. Now we face a threat from the stars. But I say this: we will not go quietly into the night." Cheers erupted in cities around the world. Humans of all nations, races, and beliefs united under a common cause: the survival of their species. In space, the Zorblaxian ship prepared to leave. They had done all they could. Captain Zorblix looked at Earth one last time, a mixture of admiration and sadness in his eyes. "May the stars watch over you, brave humans," he whispered. As the Zorblaxians departed, Earth continued its preparations. The first wave of the Empire's fleet would arrive in just 3 days. The greatest war in human history was about to begin. In his flagship, Emperor Zixnax smiled confidently. He had no idea that the easy victory he expected would turn into the greatest disaster the Empire had ever faced. The stage was set, humanity was ready, and the galaxy was about to learn a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the human spirit. The day had finally come. Earth's long-range sensors detected the first wave of the Galactic Empire's fleet entering the solar system. Tension filled the air as humanity waited for the inevitable confrontation. On the bridge of the ESS Defiant, Captain Jack Morrison stood tall, his eyes fixed on the main screen. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the pressure. "Sir, we're detecting 50 Imperial ships approaching Mars," reported Lieutenant Chen. "They'll be in weapon range in 10 minutes. Morrison nodded. "Send the message to all Earth forces. Operation Trojan Horse is a go." Across the solar system, hidden among asteroids and moons, Earth's defense fleet powered up. They had used the time given by the Zorblaxians wisely, building a force that the Empire wasn't expecting. In his flagship, Emperor Zixnax lounged on his throne, a smug smile on his face. "Show me these pathetic humans," he commanded. The screen lit up, showing the ESS Defiant floating alone in space. The Emperor laughed. "One ship. This is their defense." General Vrack, standing nearby, frowned. "It seems too easy, Your Majesty. Our intelligence suggested they were preparing defenses." The Emperor waved a dismissive hand. "Clearly, our intelligence was wrong. These humans are even more primitive than we thought. Destroy their ship as an example." As the Imperial fleet approached, the ESS Defiant remained motionless. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the comms to all Earth forces. "Remember your training. Wait for my signal." The lead Imperial ship fired, a beam of energy streaking towards the Defiant. At the last second, the Earth ship's shields flared to life, absorbing the blast. Emperor Zixnax leaned forward, surprised. "Impossible. How do they have shield technology?" Before anyone could respond, the space around the Imperial fleet erupted with activity. Earth ships decloaked, their weapons already firing. Asteroids that had seemed lifeless moments ago opened up, revealing hidden missile platforms. "It's a trap," shouted General Vrack. "We're surrounded." The battle was fierce. Imperial ships, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. But the humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the alien invaders. On Earth, in the underground command center, Dr. Aisha Patel and her team of hackers worked furiously. "The virus is uploaded," she announced. "Initiating Phase 2. Suddenly, half of the Imperial fleet's ships went dark, their systems corrupted by the human-made virus. Panic spread through the Imperial ranks as ship after ship lost power. Back on the Defiant, Captain Morrison allowed himself a small smile. All ships pressed the advantage. For Earth, the battle raged for hours. Imperial ships, despite their advanced technology, found themselves outmaneuvered by the smaller, more agile Earth vessels. The humans used tactics the Empire had never seen before, using their solar system's geography to their advantage. As the fight continued, more Imperial ships arrived, but they flew into chaos, unable to coordinate with their disabled fleetmates. In his flagship, now retreating from the battle, Emperor Zixnax raged. "How is this possible? They're savages, primitives." An aide approached cautiously. "Your Majesty, we're receiving reports from our outer colonies. The humans, they're not just defending. They're attacking our worlds." The Emperor's eyes widened in disbelief. How could these humans, confined to one planet, be attacking across the galaxy? The answer came from Earth's secret weapon, the quantum entanglement drive. Reverse-engineered from technology shared by the Zorblaxians, it allowed human ships to appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. As the main Imperial fleet faltered in the Sol system, human strike teams appeared at key Empire locations across the galaxy. Power plants were sabotaged, communication hubs destroyed, and prison worlds liberated. The first day of the war was drawing to a close. The Empire, which had expected an easy victory, found itself reeling from a series of devastating blows. On Earth, cheers erupted in every city as news of the victory spread. But military leaders knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would be back, and in greater numbers. Captain Morrison, his ship battered but unbroken, addressed his crew. "We've won the first battle, but the war has just begun. The Empire underestimated us today. They won't make that mistake again." As the Earth fleet regrouped and began repairs, the magnitude of what they had achieved sank in. Humanity had not just survived its first interstellar battle, it had emerged victorious. Across the galaxy, news of the Empire's defeat spread like wildfire. On countless conquered worlds, hope began to stir. If these humans could stand against the Empire, maybe freedom wasn't just a dream after all. The Galactic Empire had started this war expecting to crush another primitive species. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. And now, the entire galaxy watched to see what humanity would do next. 3 months had passed since the first battle. The initial shock of humanity's victory had worn off, and now both sides were locked in a fierce struggle across the galaxy. Emperor Zixnax stood before the High Council, his once proud posture now tense with anger. "I want every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have thrown at these humans," he roared. "We will crush them, no matter the cost." The Empire's full might was unleashed. Thousands of warships poured towards Earth and its colonies. On 100 worlds, Imperial troops landed, intent on destroying any human presence. But humanity was ready. In orbit around Jupiter, Admiral Sarah Chen, now commander of Earth's space forces, addressed the captains of the human fleet. "The Empire thinks quantity will overcome quality," she said, her face grim but determined. "We'll show them how wrong they are." As Imperial ships entered the solar system, they were met with a new human weapon, the gravity web. Massive generators hidden in the asteroid belt created zones of warped space, trapping enemy ships and tearing them apart. On the ground, human soldiers fought with a mix of advanced technology and guerrilla tactics. They used their knowledge of their worlds to ambush Imperial forces, striking from hidden bases and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Dr. Aisha Patel and her team worked tirelessly, creating new viruses and AI systems to disrupt Imperial communications and logistics. For every countermeasure they develop, she told her exhausted team, "We need 2 new attacks ready." The war spread to every corner of the galaxy. On Imperial core worlds, human stealth ships appeared out of nowhere, bombing key facilities before vanishing again. The Empire's once secure territories were no longer safe. But the cost was high. Earth's colonies on Mars and Europa were lost, their domed cities cracked open by relentless Imperial bombardment. Millions of humans died, and millions more became refugees, fleeing deeper into space. Captain Jack Morrison, his face now scarred from countless battles, led a daring raid into the heart of Imperial territory. His mission: to free slaves from a dozen conquered worlds. As his ship, the battle-worn ESS Defiant, approached the slave world of Exarchon, Morrison addressed his crew. "What we do today," he said, his voice steady, "we do not just for Earth, but for every being oppressed by the Empire." The raid was a success, but as the Defiant fled with thousands of freed slaves, they were ambushed by an Imperial battle group. Morrison looked at his tactical display, knowing they were outgunned. "All power to engines and rear shields," he ordered. "We're going to make a run for the Horsehead Nebula." For 3 days, the Defiant played a deadly game of cat and mouse in the nebula's dust clouds. Imperial ships, their sensors blinded, fired wildly into the fog. Morrison used every trick he knew, every bit of piloting skill he had, to keep his ship and its precious cargo safe. When they finally emerged from the nebula, only 2 of the 10 Imperial ships that had followed them remained. The freed slaves cheered as Morrison ordered a final attack, destroying the last pursuers. Back on Earth, the war effort was taking its toll. Cities lay in ruins from orbital bombardments. But in underground factories and secret mountain bases, humans worked day and night to build more ships, more weapons. President Amelia Rodriguez, speaking from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, rallied her people. "We have lost much," she said, her voice broadcast across human-controlled space. "But we have gained more. We have shown the galaxy that freedom cannot be crushed, that tyranny will always be resisted." As her words spread, something unexpected happened. On worlds long conquered by the Empire, alien races began to rebel. Inspired by humanity's resistance, they rose up against their oppressors. The Empire found itself fighting on two fronts, against the humans pushing from the outside, and against rebels rising from within. Emperor Zixnax, receiving reports of yet another defeat, smashed his communication device in fury. "How?" he screamed at his cowering advisors. "How can one primitive species cause so much chaos?" But he knew the answer. The Empire had awakened something it didn't understand, the indomitable human spirit. As the fourth month of the war began, both sides prepared for even greater battles. The Empire gathered its reserves for a final, massive push. And humanity, bloody but unbroken, stood ready to defend not just Earth, but the freedom of the entire galaxy. The war had escalated beyond anything either side had imagined, and it was far from over. 6 months into the war, both sides were exhausted. The Empire's vast resources were stretched thin, while Earth and its allies struggled to replace their losses. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which side would break first. In a secret lab on Luna, Earth's moon, Dr. Aisha Patel worked feverishly. For months, she and her team had been developing a weapon that could change the course of the war. Today, they would test it. "Energy level stable," reported her assistant. "The quantum disruptor is ready." Dr. Patel nodded, her eyes fixed on the monitor. "Activate the target drones." In the vacuum outside, 5 drone ships appeared, mimicking Imperial vessels. Dr. Patel pressed a button, and a beam of swirling energy shot from the lab's main antenna. The effect was instant. The drone's shields flickered and died. Their engines sputtered and went dark. In seconds, 5 fully operational ships became lifeless husks. Dr. Patel allowed herself a small smile. "It works. Call the President." Meanwhile, deep in Imperial space, Captain Jack Morrison led a stealth mission. His ship, the ESS Defiant, slipped past enemy patrols, its advanced cloaking technology making it invisible to Imperial sensors. "We're approaching the target," whispered his navigator. Imperial shipyard in view. Morrison leaned forward, studying the massive structure. Hundreds of warships were under construction, each one capable of destroying an entire human fleet. "Deploy the infiltration team," Morrison ordered, "and may luck be with them." From the Defiant's belly, a small shuttle emerged. Inside were 5 of humanity's best hackers and saboteurs. Their mission? To plant a virus in the shipyard's main computer, one that would spread to every ship built there. Hours passed in tense silence. Finally, a coded message flashed on Morrison's screen. "Package delivered. Exfiltration required." But as the shuttle returned, alarms blared across the shipyard. They had been discovered. "Cloak failing," shouted Morrison's engineer. "We've been hit by some kind of new scanner." Morrison's mind raced. They couldn't fight their way out, not against so many enemies. Then he remembered an old Earth tactic, one from long before space travel. "All power to engines," he commanded. "We're going to slingshot around that sun." The Defiant shot forward, diving towards the system's star. Imperial ships followed, their weapons blazing. The heat inside the ship rose as they skimmed the sun's surface, using its gravity to sling them away at incredible speed. When it was over, the Defiant was battered but alive. And behind them, the Imperial fleet had been scattered, unable to match the daring maneuver. Back on Earth, President Rodriguez received Dr. Patel's report with cautious optimism. "How soon can we deploy the quantum disruptor?" she asked. "We can outfit our major fleets within a week. replied Dr. Puddle. But, Madam President, there's something else you should know. She explained that the quantum disruptor didn't just disable ships. It also disrupted the faster-than-light communications the Empire relied on. With enough disruptors, they could cut off entire sectors of Imperial space. President Rodriguez's eyes widened as she realized the implications. We could isolate their forces, divide their fleet, and conquer them piece by piece. Finished, Dr. Patel. The President stood, her decision made. Do it, and get me Admiral Chen. It's time we take this war to the Empire. As Earth prepared its new weapon, news spread across the galaxy. The Empire's shipyard had been sabotaged, its new fleet crippled before it could even launch, and rumors swirled of a human ship that had danced with a star and survived. On a dozen worlds, alien races that had been watching the conflict with interest now began to act. Supply ships meant for Imperial forces mysteriously vanished. Star charts given to Imperial fleets contained subtle errors, leading them into ambushes. The Empire, once seen as invincible, began to look vulnerable. Emperor Zixnax, sensing the shift in the war, grew desperate. Bring me the planet killer, he commanded his scientists. If we can't defeat the humans, we'll destroy their homeworld. But as the Empire built its ultimate weapon, it didn't realize that the true turning point had already come. Humanity, with its mix of advanced technology and indomitable spirit, had changed the rules of galactic warfare. The Empire had started this war expecting an easy victory. Now, as human fleets armed with quantum disruptors prepared to launch a massive counteroffensive, the galaxy watched in awe. The war was far from over. But for the first time, the end was in sight, and it was humanity, the species that refused to flee, that stood poised to reshape the future of the galaxy. The tide of war had turned. Human fleets, now equipped with quantum disruptors, pushed deep into Imperial space. World after world fell, not to conquest, but to liberation. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Avenger, Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Before her, a holographic map showed the Empire's core worlds. All fleets report ready, Admiral, said her second-in-command. Chen nodded, her face set with determination. Then let's end this war. Commence Operation Freedom's Dawn. Across the galaxy, human ships appeared near key Imperial worlds. The quantum disruptors fired, cutting off all faster-than-light communications and disabling defense systems. On Zyrex Prime, the Empire's capital world, Emperor Zixnax watched in horror as his outer defenses went dark. Launch the planet killer, he screamed. Destroy Earth before it's too late. But the massive weapon, still untested, refused to activate. On its bridge, Imperial technicians fought against a virus that had been lying dormant in their systems for months, waiting for this moment. Back on the Avenger, Dr. Aisha Patel allowed herself a smile. Her virus, planted during Captain Morrison's daring raid, had worked perfectly. As human forces approached the capital, something unexpected happened. Imperial ships began to lower their shields and power down their weapons. Admiral, called out a communications officer, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Imperial fleets. The news spread quickly. On 100 worlds, Imperial garrisons laid down their arms. The once mighty Galactic Empire was collapsing from within. But the war wasn't over yet. A group of hardline Imperial leaders, led by General Vrak, refused to surrender. They gathered their remaining loyal forces for a last desperate stand. If we fall, Vrak told his troops, we'll take as many humans with us as we can. The final battle took place in the skies above Zyrex Prime. Imperial and human ships clashed in a furious engagement, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the void. Captain Jack Morrison, leading a squadron of fighters, dove into the heart of the Imperial formation. Remember Earth, he called to his pilots. Remember every world that suffered under the Empire's rule. His fighters struck with precision, taking out key command ships and throwing the Imperial forces into chaos. On the ground, human drop troops landed near the Imperial palace. They fought their way through the ornate halls, facing fierce resistance from the Emperor's personal guard. Leading the ground assault was Major Elena Rodriguez, the president's daughter. She had insisted on being part of this final push, saying, "If we're fighting for humanity's future, I want to see it with my own eyes." As the palace defenses crumbled, Emperor Zixnax tried to flee, but he found his escape routes blocked, his secret passages sealed off. Dr. Patel's virus had done more than just disable the planet killer. It had given human forces complete control over the palace systems. In orbit, Admiral Chen watched as the last pockets of Imperial resistance were overcome. She opened a channel to all human forces. The Imperial Palace has fallen. The Emperor is in custody. Victory is ours. Cheers erupted across human ships and on liberated worlds throughout the galaxy. The war that many thought would end humanity had instead ended the Galactic Empire. In the days that followed, representatives from Earth met with leaders from other alien races. Together, they began to shape a new galactic order, one based on freedom and cooperation rather than conquest and subjugation. President Rodriguez, speaking from the steps of the former Imperial Palace, addressed the galaxy. Today marks not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new era. We fought not just for ourselves, but for every being who has ever dreamed of freedom. The Empire told us to flee. Instead, we stood our ground, and in doing so, we have changed the course of galactic history. As the speech was broadcast across countless worlds, aliens who had once feared or dismissed humans now looked to Earth with respect and admiration. The Empire's downfall was complete, but for humanity and its new allies, the real work was just beginning. They had won the war, now they had to win the peace. Across the stars, a new age dawned, and at its center stood humanity. The species that refused to run, the race that had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and emerged victorious. The message was clear to all. Never underestimate the human spirit, for in it lies the power to reshape the very stars themselves. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Galactic Empire. The galaxy was a changed place, still healing from the scars of war, but filled with hope for the future. On Earth, the skyline of New Geneva sparkled in the morning sun. The city, built to house the new Galactic Council, was a symbol of the cooperative future humanity had fought so hard to achieve. Inside the Council's main chamber, representatives from 100 different species gathered. At the center stood President Amelia Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's representative to the galaxy. "Friends, allies, fellow sentients," she began, her voice carrying across the room. 5 years ago, we stood against tyranny. Today, we stand for unity. The chamber erupted in applause. Among the delegates, Captain Jack Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, nodded in approval. His ship, the legendary ESS Defiant, was docked in orbit, a living museum of the war that had changed everything. As the session continued, news screens across the galaxy broadcasted the event. On distant worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes watched with interest. Humans, once dismissed as primitives, were now seen as leaders and innovators. In a lab on Mars, Dr. Aisha Patel worked on her latest project. The quantum disruptor, once a weapon of war, was being repurposed for peaceful uses. "Imagine," she told her team, "using this technology to terraform barren worlds, to create habitable spaces across the galaxy." Her words sparked excitement among her colleagues, a mix of humans and aliens working together. The spirit of cooperation that had won the war now drove the greatest scientific advancements in galactic history. Meanwhile, on the former imperial capital of Zyrex Prime, a different scene unfolded. The once opulent palace of Emperor Zixnax had been transformed into a center for galactic culture and learning. In its main hall, a group of young aliens listened intently to a human teacher. "The Empire told humanity to flee," she said, "but instead, they stood their ground. And in doing so, they reminded the galaxy of a truth often forgotten, that freedom is worth fighting for. One of the students, a young Zorblaxian, raised a tentacle. "Teacher, is it true that my people warned the humans about the Empire?" The teacher smiled. "Yes, it is. And that act of kindness was the first step towards the alliance we all enjoy today." As the class continued, former Emperor Zixnax watched from a nearby window. Under house arrest, he was allowed to observe but not interfere. The once mighty ruler now spent his days writing his memoirs, trying to understand where his empire had gone wrong. Across the galaxy, signs of the new order were everywhere. Former imperial warships, repurposed as exploration vessels, charted unknown regions of space. Planets once stripped bare by imperial mining now flourished under careful restoration projects. But perhaps the most significant change was in how different species interacted. Races that had been bitter enemies under imperial rule now worked side by side, learning from each other and building a shared future. On a distant frontier world, a mixed crew of humans and aliens worked to establish a new colony. As they raised the settlement's first building, a human engineer turned to her Xarchon colleague, a member of a species once enslaved by the Empire. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here, doing this together?" she asked. The Exarchon's facial tentacles rippled in what humans had learned was a smile. "Never," it replied. "But I'm glad we are." As the day drew to a close, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Below her, the blue marble of humanity's homeworld spun slowly. A young ensign approached her. "Admiral," he said, "do you think there will ever be another war like the one against the Empire?" Chen was quiet for a moment, considering. "I hope not," she finally replied. "But if there is, I know this. The galaxy will face it together." As night fell across Earth, citizens in every city gathered for the annual Peace Festival. Fireworks lit up the sky, each burst a reminder of the battles won and the price paid for freedom. In homes and gatherings across the planet, people raised their glasses in a toast that had become tradition. To those who told us to flee, we say, "Look at us now." The story of humanity's stand against the Galactic Empire had become legend, told and retold across 1,000 worlds. It was a reminder to all that even in the darkest times, hope could prevail. And as the galaxy looked to the future, one thing was clear. The species that refused to run had not just saved itself, but had changed the course of galactic history forever.